People's faith is always tested during times of tragedy. And this year, with Christmas coming on the heels of the Newtown, Connecticut horror, it is an especially difficult holiday season for many.
Here to talk about the search for meaning at the holidays while so many are mourning are the Reverend Dr. Calvin Butts, pastor of Harlem's Abyssinian Baptist Church and president of SUNY College at Old Westbury, Rabbi Irwin Kula, president of the Jewish Center for Learning and Leadership, and Raquel Evita Saraswati of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Good morning to you all. Thanks for being here. Reverend Dr. Butts, let me start with you. I mean, first, I think it would be easy for a lot of people's faith to feel challenged after what happened in Newtown last week. And what do you say to people like that?
Well, it is true that you're challenged. All of us are challenged. And your faith should help you to deal with the challenge. In other words, should give you a new perspective. And in the midst of so much challenge, for instance, in the Christian faith, we celebrate the birth of Jesus. But we also remember that during the birth and the celebration, angels singing, infants were murdered because Herod sent out a decree that all babies 2 years and below would be killed. And so there's always going to be the challenge to our faith by the tragedy in our world. And so our faith tells us to look toward the hope. For instance, when you're up on a mountain, you see rocks and trees and raw earth. But when you stand back from it, you see this majestic beauty. So your perspective changes. In the world, you will have tribulation. But we say in our faith, be of good cheer, for he has overcome the world.
Rabbi Kula, stepping back from that mountain can be very difficult for people. And that's really one of the big questions. How does one take that step back?
Well, I think the first thing is, much like Reverend said, if your faith is exactly the same in the face of murdered children, then something's wrong with your faith. All right? It's an illusion. You're repressing stuff. Your faith should be broken by this kind of tragedy and the kind of evil that we see. So the first thing is, a broken faith is not a bad faith. A broken faith is part of the experience. And then the question is, do we do theology at that time? Are we trying to protect and defend a God that wasn't there for some of us? No, I think what we really have to do is to say, how do we act in a way we wish God would have acted? And if you act that way with more compassion, with more love, with more care, with actually being concerned with the people who are more vulnerable than you, then you begin to argue back faith and trust.
I had a Jesuit priest in college who taught the religion class, the problem of God, as it was called, and he used to say, he said, faith isn't really strong unless it's been tested, unless it's been challenged.
There's nothing as strong as a broken heart, says our tradition. Yeah.
Raquel, there was a new survey that came out by the Pew Research organization that said 1 in 6 people follow no religion now. You work with a lot of Muslim women. I mean, are you seeing, an erosion at all there?
No, there are sort of two schools of thought on this. One, that Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world, and the other, which as you demonstrate, has been quantified. The vast majority of American Muslims don't, in fact, attend mosque. There are a lot of reasons for that. Our mainstream institutions, we were just talking about this earlier, seem to have lost a bit of relevance. And everyday Muslims also see, for example, for women, that spaces aren't always accommodating as they should be. They might see the imam or the mosque itself is connected to an external funding source that means that that what is taught there isn't necessarily quite in line with their own values. And so what we are seeing a lot of is not necessarily an erosion of faith, but ways that we're finding new ways to fellowship together and ways to bring more people to the table. And I think that's a really important lesson for this season as well.
I think that's the key insight there, that we're seeing these two things happen at the same time. A diminishing of mainstream religious institutions worldwide, especially in America. Fastest growing group is nuns, N-O-N-E-S. And at the same time, we have more people praying than in the 1940s. We have more people claiming they believe in God, whatever that means, than 20 years ago. So we have two things happening. And this has to do with the mistrust of institutions, mixing and blending of people. People can speak across boundaries that they never could speak of until the last 2-3 decades. People can enter other people's faith systems. People can borrow other people's resources, taste other people's foods, and not only their physical foods, but their soul foods, so to speak. And so what you have is a new test for religions. Do they actually work?
In terms of, it's been a stressful holiday already for a lot of people. What do you tell people, in the simplest terms, in a sentence or two, how do you find peace this holiday season?
I think one thing if I could do something for Newtown, this is what I'd do. I'd find some money and fly in parents from Columbine. They should be talking to parents in Newtown. But even more dramatically for me, I'd go to Birmingham and I'd find the parents who are still living of the little girls who were killed in that church when it was bombed. And I'd fly them to Newtown. Those who have tasted tragedy are the best ones to speak to those who are going through it at this moment.
For Newtown, I look at the stories across religions about when these great miracles occurred. If you look at in Judaism, in Christianity, and Islam, the things that we celebrate most around this time of year have come after great trial. So when Jesus was born, that wasn't luxurious. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't easy. When the light was preserved for 8 days, that was after great struggle. And when water was preserved for Ishmael, in Islam, that was after great struggle.
So I would say we have to do both things. In other words, one, we can't allow despair and cynicism to win out. That's the single most important thing people can do.
Right.
And then the way in which you do that is no cheap grace, no cheap sentimentality. If you're watching TV and you're not in Newtown and you're feeling sad and you're feeling, oh, everything's over, the job to do is to do something active to help someone more vulnerable than you.
Right.
Thank you so much to all of you. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Reverend Dr. Butts, Rabbi Kula, Raquel, Evita, Saraswati. Thank you so much to all of you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.